Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. In this explainer, we're using Christopher Hitchens' Biography of Rights of Man to dig into a really fundamental system, political legitimacy. You know, the invisible code that decides who gets to rule and, maybe more importantly, why the rest of us agree to obey. Okay, so back in the late 18th century, Thomas Paine publishes Rights of Man, and it was basically a bomb thrown into the political establishment. It was a direct shot at Edmund Burke, who was the great defender of monarchy and tradition. And this book, it just sparked this huge public fight over what a government should even be. A fight, by the way, that we're still having today. At its core, what Hitchens really explores is how political legitimacy gets built and how it's defended. And it all boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful question. Where does power get its permission? Just asking that question exposes the two totally different systems that were clashing here. So to really get what Paine was trying to do, we have to first understand the system he was attacking. And really, nobody explained that old system better than his biggest rival, Edmund Burke. For Burke, legitimacy wasn't something you just made up. It was something you inherited. It flowed from tradition, from the crown, from the church. He saw it as this almost sacred contract with the past, and he believed it was the only thing that guaranteed stability. So in this system, you don't choose the rules. They're just handed down to you. Authority's legit because, well, that's how it's always been done. Think of power like a family heirloom. It's held in trust, passed from one generation to the next, and you're not supposed to change it. Now, Paine looked at this whole system of inherited power, and he just called it what he thought it was, tyranny. So he came back with what was essentially a revolutionary system upgrade. And this quote right here, this is the heart of it for Paine. He just completely rejected this idea that the dead should get to rule the living. His argument was that every single generation has to be free to decide for itself how it wants to be governed. So you see, this was way more than just a disagreement over policy. This was a war between two completely different sources of legitimacy. You had Burke's system, where authority comes from the past, from what you inherit, and then you have Paine's system, where authority comes from the present, from the active consent of the people, right here, right now. And we can actually frame this entire conflict with a modern metaphor that makes the stakes incredibly clear. I want you to think of legitimacy not as some kind of moral virtue, but as a society's operating system. It's the invisible code that's always running in the background. It defines all the rules, it decides who gets to do what, and it justifies the entire power structure. So the first question for any operating system is, who gets admin access? In Burke's system, that access is hereditary. It's locked by bloodline and passed down through a king or queen. But in Paine's system, the admin password belongs to the people, and access is only granted through democratic consent. Okay, what about the default settings? For Burke, the system comes pre-installed with tradition, the church, and an aristocracy. For Paine, the system needs a clean install, based only on natural rights, on reason, and a written constitution that anybody can read and understand. And this is a big one. How does the system handle updates? In Burke's world, a big change is like a virus. It's a dangerous corruption of the code that could crash the whole machine. But in Paine's world, revolution is a feature, not a bug. It's a totally legitimate system update you can run when the government starts violating the rights of its users, the people. And what's so powerful about this is that this 18th century debate actually gives us a fantastic tool for decoding the political conflicts we see all around us today. You know, once you start to see legitimacy as an operating system, you see the patterns everywhere. The stories we tell that prop up authority, the way media works to shape our consent, even those endless debates about original intent. It's all part of a struggle over the system's source code. And things like protests, well, they look a lot like pressure to redesign that very code. What Hitchens' analysis of Paine really shows us is that the constant struggle over authority and rights and persuasion, it's not just random noise. It is the ongoing, high-stakes battle over who gets to write the code that we all have to live by. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer, audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.